What does the Bible say about being a chill guy? And what does it even mean to be a chill guy? I think the chill guy meme is basically this new age mindset that is teaching young adults and young teenagers to not worry about anything that life throws at you. And that kind of seems like a good idea, doesn't it? Not to let any of life's stressors stress you out. I think that's a great idea, but doesn't seem very practical, right? I know that many times in life, I'm not chill. I know that when life throws me punches, I usually duck and I weave and I pull. And when I get hit, sometimes I cry. Sometimes I get down and out, and I'm not very chill about it. So how do we adopt this chill guy mindset, and is it even biblical? I think the Bible has a lot to say about what it means to be a chill guy, and I think it's all about balancing when to be chill and when not to be chill. A great word that we can use to replace the phrase chill guy is the word meek, and the Bible has a lot to say about this word meek. In the Bible it says in Matthew 5:5, "Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth." Psalms 37:11 says, "But the meek shall inherit the land and delight themselves in abundant peace." So the Bible not only promises abundant peace, but he promises that we will inherit the earth if we can implement this idea of being meek. But what does it mean to be meek, and how do we implement this in our daily life? The word meek in the Bible means strength under control. So how do we implement this in our life? When life throws us a punch, how do we stay under control? Well, I think the Bible demonstrates this characteristic through a couple key characters. Paul and Silas were some of Jesus' first disciples after Jesus' crucifixion. And after Jesus' crucifixion and death, they went around the world spreading the gospel. Them and a few other disciples were going all around the world risking their life to spread the news of Jesus. Paul and Silas were caught, they were beaten, and they were thrown in prison for doing the same thing. Now they're thinking in their minds that they're going to be dying because they already knew most of their brothers had already died. So Paul and Silas are chained up to other men in a prison cell, and they are face down in the mud, and they cry out to God. Paul and Silas were not concerned with trying to rescue themselves. They were not concerned with their current situation. If it was me, I would be thinking, Jesus, where are you at? I've been obedient to you. I am here spreading your gospel. Why aren't you rescuing me for this situation? But Paul and Silas were demonstrating their meekness. They were completely submitted to God's will for their life, even at the face of death. They were totally okay with their circumstance, and their concern was praising God. They completely gave God control to take over their life, and even at the face of death, they were ready to give it all up. And that is meekness demonstrated. At the end of the story, Paul and Silas lift up a shout of praise and worship to God. There was a great earthquake. The Bible describes that the prison doors were broken open, their chains were broken, and they were freed. And not only them, but the prisoners that were with them, their chains also broke. And so I want to ask you, who is on the other side of your obedience to God? Who is on the other side of your meekness? Being a chill guy sometimes is all about just giving the control to God and not worrying about the certain circumstance and just giving it all up. Just like Paul and Silas, after their obedience, the prisoners were freed next to them. There are people in your life right now that don't know Jesus, that are bound in chains to their addictions, to their habits. And through your obedience, through your meekness, by you trusting in the Lord and letting God take control and totally reign in your life, other people around you are going to be saved and freed. Jesus himself was also meek in many times in the Bible. Think about the story of Jesus on the boat in the middle of the storm. Jesus and the disciples found himself in a very dangerous situation while they were sailing on a boat in the deep seas. Jesus is fast asleep under the bow of the boat, and the disciples were up above battling the sea. Can you imagine just being in the middle of the sea, this huge storm's toppling over the boat, and you feel like you're on your last day. You feel like your world's going to end. And Jesus is just fast asleep under the boat. If it was me, I would have been a little bit angry. But Jesus was totally meek. He knew that he had control of the situation. There was nothing to worry about. In Mark 4:39 through 40, it says, "And he woke and rebuked the wind and said to the sea, 'Peace, be still.' And the wind ceased and there was a great calm." While the disciples were panicking, Jesus was totally meek and totally under control. He wasn't going crazy. He wasn't scared. I imagine the disciples being a little disheartened at his reaction. "Jesus, don't you realize we're going to die? Why are you asleep underneath the boat?" I would have been pissed. Jesus came back up and said, "Peace, be still." Jesus wants to speak to your situation. Maybe you're facing this great storm and you don't know how to react. How do I be meek? How do I be chill about this, God? Jesus can just come and just say peace in one word and everything is still. But it takes relinquishing control to him and not trying to take control of it in yourself. See, I imagine that the disciples were trying to muster up the courage to control the boat, try to stop the storm. What are we gonna do? Stop, pull the sails down, turn left, turn right, I don't know. But Jesus was totally calm in the middle of the storm. And Jesus can speak to your situation. But are there ever times in the Bible where we're called to be confrontational, to not be very meek? I think that the Bible shows us where this is applicable as well. Think about the story of Nehemiah and Nehemiah 6:3. I am doing a great work and I cannot come down. Why should I stop the work and leave it and come down to you? Nehemiah was not chill when it came to distractions in the church. Nehemiah was not chill when it came to somebody trying to stop the good work that he was doing. Nehemiah, after this in the next few chapters, is very unchill when he leaves Israel in very good hands and he comes back to a very disobedient Israel. He comes in like a big bad boss and he's rebuking everybody, telling everybody to repent from their sins. The Bible says in Ecclesiastes 3:1, there is a time for everything and a season for every activity under the heavens, a time to be silent and a time to speak. This verse underscores the wisdom of knowing when to stay calm and when to act. And on that same note, think about Jesus in the temple. He was not being a chill guy. In John 2:15 it says, and making a whip of cords, he drove them all out of the temple with the sheep and oxen, and he poured out the coins of the money changers and overturned their tables. Jesus was not meek in this moment because he was defending God's holiness. It required bold, decisive action. He literally made a whip and started whipping all the leaders in the church. He was overturning tables and pouring out money jars. Can you imagine this scene? Jesus just stirring up a total ruckus and totally disturbing the peace in that church. But God called for some confrontation in that moment, and Jesus was not afraid to be the one to do it. So I think there's definitely a balance and there's a time that we should be meek and there's a time that we should be confrontational. The balance lies in discerning God's will for a specific moment. And I think this is the key. Meekness is about yielding to God's authority and acting with humility and gentleness when the situation calls for restraint. And boldness is about standing firm for God's truth and taking decisive action when God's name, His holiness, or His mission is at stake. Being chill and meek often go hand in hand when you trust God's timing and control. True strength comes from knowing when to wait on God and when to move in obedience to His call. So the next time life throws an unexpected curveball, ask yourself, is this a moment to be meek and trust God, or is this a moment to stand up and act? Either way, it's all about reflecting the heart of God in everything that you do. Be blessed.